Oh, my man Johnston, what's up, dude? How's it going? Yeah, I'll see you this weekend. All right.
So why is that possible? Although C4C Boone may have been a hypothetical, his actions resemble a lot of truth in the cadet wing. The USAFA has a plethora of rules and regulations designed to develop us into the leaders we need to one day become. So why isn't anyone enforcing them? These rules are essentially the same across all service academies. However, students on exchange report that cadets at USAFA are incompetent at policing their own rules in comparison to the cadets at West Point, Annapolis, and Coast Guard. Scott Warziniak, a cadet on exchange at Coast Guard, elaborates.
No one follows rules at USAFA.
Thanks, Scott. When we follow the CSP, we exhibit the climate of commitment and culture of excellence that the Air Force requires of its professionals. But many cadets only follow the rules when they are feeling forced to, and this will often let our standards slide when no one is watching. This also suggests a breakdown on one of the 4 characteristics of a professional, intrinsic motivation, meaning that cadet behavior is because of external outcomes rather than their own internal development. Many cadets seem to have fallen into a state of compliance, which is defined as carrying out the requested action but are apathetic about it rather than enthusiastic, make only a minimal or average effort, and do not show any initiative. And resistance, meaning opposed to the requested action and tries to avoid it by refusing, arguing, delaying, or seeking to have the request nullified, rather than the overall goal of commitment, meaning the cadet agrees internally with an action or decision, is enthusiastic about it, and is likely to exercise initiative and demonstrate unusual effort and persistence in order to carry out the request successfully. We would like to see from transformational leadership. To tackle this problem, we have set our sights on one of the more visual examples of not self-policing fellow cadets, which is the 4 degrees system. In this video, we researched the problem of upperclassmen not holding 4 degrees accountable through surveying the cadet wing and also individual interviews. We then devised an implementation plan in an attempt to remedy this problem.
I often see cadets mostly corrected by permanent party on just little things, but even then it's very infrequent, especially by other cadets. I'd say maybe probably see 5-10 times a week max.
Yeah, I rarely see them get corrected.
Well, the person does it politely. It's usually not too bad. If it's my uniform, I really embrace that kind of correction because that way I can be looking better. But a lot of times it's done in kind of a negative way, and really don't like it. Kind of blow that person off.
Depends on who's correcting me and their attitude. I mean, if they're respectful, I don't really have a problem with it.
Goobers.
It's usually the perception is people that tryhards and goobers.
Most of the ones that I've seen make corrections are the ones that were very particular in following standards when they were 4 degrees as well.
I think in general it's people that care, but sometimes they're very misguided about how they go about doing it.
Because I don't want people to think I'm a goober.
Most of the time cadets are actually following the rules, but on small little things that most of them don't know the rule on, they kind of tend to ignore it. So
a lot of what we do here the freshman year leaves a really bad taste in people's mouth.
It stems from this idea that it's not cool to correct 4 degrees or to correct anybody for that matter.
Interested in what the rest of the cadet wing thought about our issue, we decided to establish an anonymous idea baseline about how upperclassmen respond to issues of freshmen not keeping up with standards. Our survey culminated in a pool of 25 upperclassmen from 6 different squadrons, and it revealed some very interesting clues as to what the general population here at the Academy believed about correcting freshmen. Every single respondent claimed to see freshmen break the rules at least once a day, but what's more intriguing is that 64% of the respondents claim to have seen it happen at least 3 times a day. From the total response, we estimate that the average upper-class cadet witnesses about 10 to 15 infractions a week. But what are they doing about it? Evidently, very little, as only 16% reported having seen another person correcting the freshman. Breaking down the topic of correcting, the survey suggests that 16% of the people don't even bother to correct the freshman at all, and yet as many as 28% would claim their corrections would only occur for those freshmen who are in their element or squadron. This fact highlights an issue of too much team cohesion, where the confusion is delegated duty creates indifference in each person's actions. Even though team cohesion is generally a good thing, it can actually cause problems if that team is too focused on itself to look at others around them and help them, especially if their team is part of a bigger team or group. This type of negative team cohesion occurs due to confusion in delegation. Delegation is supposed to accomplish three main objectives: free leaders of time-consuming chores, develop followers, and strengthen an organization. However, those three are the results of an ideal situation. In real cadet life in USAFA, ideal situations can't happen all the time. Since most of the cadet jobs are separated according to various categories such as support, training, major training events, etc., the cadets think that enforcing rules is the job of training staff. This is how some confusion occurs. However, enforcing the rules is not a delegated job. It is a standard of being an airman. Therefore, this misunderstanding of delegation needs to be fixed. 6 of the 25 people also claimed that they only make the corrections when the freshmen break rules that mattered. This underlines an issue in organizational justice, since they believe that some rules are more worthy than others. More specifically, this could be traced back to a lack of distributive justice. Distributive justice is a perception of whether the level of reward or punishment is proportionate with an individual's performance or infraction. For approval of rules, cadets need to be able to recognize the organizational justice. When correcting freshmen, the reward received is a bad reputation among cadets. USAFA wants cadets to enforce the rules, but cadets have trouble seeing any positive outcomes of doing so. Nevertheless, according to the cadets we surveyed, the act of correcting cadets is somewhat represented through the MPA. On the other hand, they don't have much information or idea of how it relates. Generally, cadets think the cost of correcting other cadets is greater than the reward that could be given. When asked why people don't make corrections, over half of the respondents claim that it wasn't cool to do it. Here we see a lack of moral courage in the upperclassmen to act to fix this problem. Moral courage is the ability to use inner principles to do what is good for others, regardless of threat to self, as a matter of practice. The ideal view of a morally courageous person is therefore someone who consistently makes decisions in the light of what is good for others, despite personal risk. In such a small society like USAFA, cadets are concerned with the possible impact on their reputation, and therefore don't make the necessary corrections. Although 64% of the upperclassmen felt they could still be an effective leader without correcting these freshmen. Here we see a clash in the organizational norm on leadership and the personal view, which means that this organizational norm has been poorly established. Having a good organizational norm promotes a unified effort of the members of the organization to work together, but if it can't be delivered to the unit members, then the personal views of the individuals will take over and dissonance between the two will start to occur.
The best way to create a culture throughout the cadet wing that exudes respect and allows for cadets to correct each other without negativity is through transformational leadership. Utilizing idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, and individualized consideration, we can inspire and motivate each other to be the best that we can possibly be. If each member in the chain of command exemplifies an expert or referent base of power, we can and will create a commitment to excellence throughout the wing. To create this commitment, we must be in agreement with or have an acceptance of the attempted influence of the leadership above us, characterized by the active support of the desired and directed change we wish to be, a wing who follows the standards. To test this plan out, we began at the squadron level, where there could be some control and the feeling for the implementation plan could be quickly evaluated. By getting to know the people below them, the squadron leadership creates a climate of respect and represents individualized consideration. They will gain their subordinates' respect by making sure that they themselves are first doing everything right all the time. Once their subordinates begin to see this, they too will aspire to be like them. In this presentation of cadets, the A2 element cadets of Squadron 3 sit and discuss their weekly encounters with issues around the wing pertaining to standards. This short discussion is led by any range of squadron leadership from element leaders to the squadron commander. Each cadet is asked to give at least one encounter that they experience throughout their week in which they notice a lack in standards, amongst their classmates or even amongst themselves. Once everyone has gone around the table and shared their encounters, the leadership at the table presents a challenge to the members of their element to help better themselves and the wing. The element leader may discuss ways to confront people with respect without insulting them or seeming like a goo. For example, to correct a classmate who was walking and talking on the cell phone while in uniform, you might stop and say, "Hey man, remember to not walk while you're on the phone. Thanks. Have a good day." The idea is to hold yourself accountable first and then hold others to the same standards. Also, it is always courteous to say thanks when others hold you accountable. Elements will also have weekly debriefs about their challenge to keep their classmates accountable to help make our institution the best in the country, to instill pride and show visitors who we truly are. After a series of meetings, squadron leadership in 4 degrees reported that they felt that simply discussing such violations and standards made them more aware and confident to correct their fellow wingmen and themselves. Simply having the training and backing of their classmates wasn't enough to help hold each other accountable.